Welcome back to Mystara for this week's video, where you wanted to hear about how to get angry and break things. In other words, putting barbarians into Mystara, retconning a class the setting never had. It wasn't easy, I won't lie. I haven't been a fan of barbarians as a class since 1st edition, for reasons I will talk about soon. But it's not about what I like, it's about how to incorporate a new class into an old setting. I'm Mr. Welch, and today we're taking our shirts off and raging all over the place. The Barbarian as a class has been an on and off thing since 1st edition, going all the way back to Unearthed Arcana, where they were notoriously difficult to work into parties because of their built-in hatred of wizards and magic. They were required to avoid all magic items until much higher levels, and always had a reason to stab the wizard to death. 2nd edition turned the Barbarian into a variety of kits, which were much less murderous alternatives towards other party members, well, except for the Wizard Slayer kit, of course. 3rd edition gave us the watered-down, angry fighter stereotype that still lingers in 5th edition. So that's the history of the D&D Barbarian, at least from the version's point of view. So what does this have to do with Mystara? Not really much. The class never existed in Beckme, and when it got to 2nd edition, it wasn't a class either. Because of the historical equivalents of the various nations, fierce wilderness warriors are pretty much restricted to very specific locations on the fringe of most nations, and none of the nations were entirely populated with barbarians unless you wanted to get really racist really quick. Even the demi-human races aren't really known for getting angry and hulking out, though the humanoid races certainly are. There are a few exceptions. Barbarians in Mystara are literally on the periphery. You're not going to find random roving hordes of barbarians from Darrican, Minrathad, the Shires, and a good number of other nations. Now, there are exceptions, and the Northern Reaches are obviously the main source of barbarians. They are the Berserker style of barbarian from 5th edition. The King of Osland keeps Berserkers as his own personal bodyguard. The Berserker subclass fits with the Northern Reaches theme of what price power, with the added exhaustion for the one more attack in combat. Barbarians tend to be cultural cliques in Mystara rather than entire tribes of barbarians living on the outskirts. The Totem Warrior is more likely found in Etruscan, especially among the Savage Tiger Clan. The Tiger Clan wants to shed blood, and driving certain warriors into murderous rages and unleashing them on Darrican and Turtle Clan settlements is perfect for that. These would be used as shock troops in assaults, with little regard if the warriors lived or died in the assault, just as long as they inflicted massive casualties in their attack. Barbarians aren't common among the other clans. The Elks aren't typically a warlike people. The Turtle and Bear Clan are more mercantile than warriors. And the Horse Clan specializes in highly planned strategic light cavalry attacks. Considering barbarians in 5th edition are pretty much axe to face, that really doesn't fit in with any of the Etruscan clans other than the Psychotic Tigers. Now, from the Mystara Player's Guide, barbarians get the subclass Reaver, a bunch of drug-addicted madmen who serve as living weapons for pirates, slavers, and other ne'er-do-wells. You could easily find Reavers being used by the Iron Ring, people kept addicted to various drugs and unleashed as disposable vanguards on slaving raids, buying the Iron Ring time to grab new slaves to fill their quotas. The newly captured slaves might be turned into Reavers themselves if the Iron Ring needs more warriors. Some Reavers do take the drugs willingly, fully embracing the rush of combat despite the risks the drugs themselves pose. In the Canalbarth Forest, several elven groups patrol the lower reaches of Alfheim. Some of them going a bit feral, defending against the numerous monsters plaguing the area might not be out of the realm of possibility. Elves aren't normally of the mindset to turn into raging Hulk monsters. Aside from the water elves that follow the path of the Reaver, elves just don't do barbarians. Other elven areas, barbarians are almost unheard of. The Belkades are highly civilized, Shadow Elves are way too reserved to turn into rage monsters, and the other elven subraces are more weapon masters than pointy-eared Bruce Banners. One major problem barbarians have in Mystara is most races aren't inclined to be barbarians. The Hin tend to domesticate wherever they go. They aren't the angry fighter type. They're more swashbucklers or straight-up fighters than the shirtless rampaging types. The Rockborn Dwarves are another group that is known for their calm, cool murder sprees rather than just losing it and going berserk. There's some dwarves found in the northern reaches that could join a berserker lodge, but barbarians for dwarves are a rare career choice. Gnomish barbarians are almost unheard of because your two types of gnomes are sky gnomes and hill gnomes. Serain isn't going to take kindly to any gnome ripping off his shirt and going berserk, and hill gnomes aren't going to be just as forgiving either. Of the races that would embrace being barbarians, surprisingly the Sidhe would embrace that, mainly the Unseelie, who love to go on murderous rages in the first place. Sure, the iron vulnerability is a problem, but since the Unseelie don't fight fair, they aren't going to go after people with iron weapons. Even if they do have to fight creatures with iron, the damage reduction given to them by rage cancels the iron vulnerability anyways. While the Sidhe are chaotic in nature, the Seelie prefer classes based more on charisma and dexterity than brute strength, but the sadistic Unseelie are just looking for a reason to hurt people. A large number of barbarians are going to be found among the Lupin and Rakasta, found on the Savage Coast or on the Isle of Dread. Greater Rakasta are known for their strength, and one hulking out isn't unheard of. Of course, the feral Rakasta are going to have some of the wilder of their kin go barbarian. The domestic Rakasta are the exact opposite of barbarians. It's hard to see an oversized house cat decide it wants to be a wilderness-oriented rampaging warrior. The Lupin are more organized than the Rakasta, with the difference being that the Lupin sub-races are sorted by size rather than location like the Rakasta. In the wilder lands, a Lupin might take up the mantle of a barbarian if the pack needs it. The biggest problem for barbarians in Mystara is that most nations don't have a culture that you find barbarians in. You might get some backwoods woodsmen and Karamikos, but places like Galantia or Irindi aren't known for unsettled areas, so a shirtless angry type guy is going to be considered rather unusual. Even in areas like Ethengar, while remote, are more known for organized cavalry formations than sending wave after wave of berserking warriors at the enemy. But when it comes to the Hollow World, there are far more barbarians than the surface world, as the Hollow World has a large collection of much more primitive nations like the Ice Lore Elves or the Beastlands. Here the lack of heavy armor, as well as the large amounts of wilder areas in the Hollow World, perfectly fit in the dynamics of the barbarian class. Barbarians for a lot of the nations fit the fighting styles for much of the region better than an actual fighter does. True, it doesn't work for certain areas like the Millennium Empire, the Ostduke Gnomes, or most definitely the Gentlefolk, but the barbarians could be the default warrior class for the Beastmen or the Antilians. That's the rundown on barbarians in Mystara. They have a limited role on the surface world, but you've got more opportunities in the Hollow World because of the lack of armor there. Barbarians in the known world have the problem of being on the outskirts of society with little organization. When I was writing this guide, a lot of people told me to make the classes for the Crown Guard, Irindi, or Etrugan warriors just barbarians, which caused a lot of problems because I would have been calling the Scots, the American Indians, or the Maori barbarians as a whole race. As I had a lot of help with Irindi from several Pacific Island friends, I didn't want to offend Jack, or Tavita, or Rosamund, or Teresa, or Lisa, or Tina. And that's 6 people representing 5 different island nations right there. Australia still counts as an island nation, right? Now, this guide isn't mandatory, of course. It's your game, your rules. I'm just trying to work barbarians into a setting that doesn't have a lot of room for them outside the areas mentioned above, and has also never had the class before in any edition that it was in print in. So the next topic for voting, I'm staying with the classes of Mystara with the Druids of Mystara, which have a little bit of mention, but not a lot overall, so I'm going to have to do the deep delve into the lore. But until next time, Hulk smash.